I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
This is the Virtual Real Estate Investor Podcast with Vincent Polisi. Buckle your seatbelt and prepare to learn how to legally make six figures investing in real estate with no money, no credit check, and nothing but a computer and internet connection. Learn how you too can begin generating buyers and sellers for free today, and why you're only 2 calls away from making a $10,000 or more payday while never leaving the comfort of your home. And now, your host, the virtual real estate investor, Vincent Polisi.
Okay, so future of real estate investing. Guess what, my friends? Unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it is the end of private property ownership as we know it today. That is the well-defined, well-established, well-documented plan and the direction that they're heading, as you can see, and you can tell on a daily basis with what they're doing. It's not even conspiracy, tinfoil hat conspiracy theory anymore. They've actually documented all this stuff and put it in black and white so that way you guys can look this stuff up on your own. And what you want to be looking up are what are called UN stands for United Nations Agendas 21 and 30. It's all under the guise of what they call sustainable development. Essentially what they want to do, and this is all documented, is they want to move everybody in the U.S. East of the Mississippi River. Okay, so that means all the people in California, Washington, Wyoming, Montana, Texas, etc. Everybody out in the Midwest, out in the West, they want to move everybody all over to east of the Mississippi River, okay, to be contained east of the Mississippi River, and then to use they have what they call UN World Heritage Sites and all that. So they have total control of everything west of the Mississippi, and they've got the herd, the masses all contained to the east of the Mississippi River, which would be where I'm at here in Florida, and obviously all the way up through the eastern seaboard and through the northeast and all that. So that's the plan. They've documented it. This is what they said they're going to do. And guess what? They're doing it. Okay. Let me show you. You're going to see what I'm talking about here. They don't even try to hide it anymore. And they haven't for a long time. Most people just don't pay attention as to what's actually going on. So step one is already playing out right now. Okay. It's already, you're seeing it, you're witnessing it before your eyes. What is step one? Okay. It is what is called the pump and dump. Now, for those of you who don't know what a pump and dump is, basically what happens is through artificial stimulus, the price of housing gets pumped up, okay? And typically this is done, if you guys watch The Wolf of Wall Street, normally it's done in securities in the stock market and that kind of thing. But for what we're talking about here, they're doing it in housing, okay? So it's just a different commodity that they're using as opposed to actual stocks. So it's called the pump and dump. So what do they do here? Let me show you a couple things here real quick. Just so you understand how the pump and dump is working presently, okay? Because it's going on right now, right before your house. So here's the pump, okay? What you have going on right now that are helping many areas increase in price. I'm going to show you this here in just a second. You've got state and local governmental interference, which is totally illegal and unconstitutional, where they are imposing what are called eviction and foreclosure moratoriums. Now, what that means in English is that means that you can't evict and you can't foreclose on somebody that's not paying in a property. Well, what does that do? There's a number of different things here that we'll cover in just a second, but first and foremost, you have people not paying. The average investor, if you go by the rule of thumb, you should have at least 6 months worth of reserves per property. Most don't have that. And since this has been going on since March, we're now at month 9. So they are basically bankrupting many of the smaller investors who can't afford to hold on while people are not paying their rent. Okay, so that's one thing that's happening right now. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, in many locations, they've actually closed courthouses. So even if you could, and you never want to evict or foreclose on anybody, but even if you could evict and foreclose, you can't because the courthouse is closed. So they've got you basically hogtied there between the two of those. And this causes a great deal of contraction of supply and shortage of inventory as you can imagine, because those houses that would normally be out and available on the market are not, because they are being locked up. Typically, you have, in a normal market environment, a 3 to 4 month supply, sometimes as much as 6 month supply of housing. Right now, we're at about, I think the last quote I saw was about 2.34%. I'm sorry, not 2.34 months of supply. Okay. What that means is, in a normal housing market, you would have typically 3, 4, 5, 6 months of supply available out there between resales and new construction. And right now, you're looking at just over 2 months worth of supply. That's not a lot. Okay, it's not a lot at all, especially for what's happening that I'll show you here in just a second. All right. You also have this unconstitutional CDC, which CDC, if you guys don't know, stands for Centers for Disease Control, Intervention and Evictions. They have absolutely no legal mandate, number one, to exist at all. And number two, certainly not to have any authority by which to prevent the eviction process, which is a private contract between two parties, and to interfere, it's called tortious interference, in between the two parties, as well as through the proper recourse under law, which would be the eviction and or foreclosure action. Okay. But they're doing it anyway. And the reason they get away with this stuff is because under law, silence is acquiescence. Okay. What that means is, because you won't fight and you won't take them to court and you won't do all the stuff, then they get away with it by default. It's just like we covered this in the last webinar, under what's called the terms of service. Like, your credit card providers provide you a terms of service update, your whatever accounts you have, subscription accounts, they're always providing you a terms of service. Well, unless you contest the terms of service, because you were silent, you have agreed to the terms of service, even though you didn't read them. Okay. Doesn't make a difference. That's how it works under law. So most people are not contesting this. They're not going to court. And as a result, they keep getting away with this nonsense. All right. Now, you'll notice that there's all these programs out there right now where there's all kinds of relief for tenants. Okay. For tenants, but not for the investors / landlords who actually have the mortgages to pay, who have the property taxes to pay, et cetera, maintenance and repairs to pay, et cetera. There is no relief for that. So the overall plan here is just to totally cripple the individual guys, guys like me and you, or, guys and gals like us, to cripple that segment of the market completely by making it impossible for you to evict, while at the same time, what they have been doing is obviously, and we're about to get to that slide here, causing massive amounts of unemployment. All right. Now, again, the contraction of supply and shortage of inventory, if you understand supply and demand, what that does obviously is that makes prices go up in many markets. Okay. And we'll cover those here in just a second, but it's just the law of supply and demand. There's less inventory, so prices are going up. I have a personal friend that's actually a realtor up in Jacksonville, Florida, who's absolutely on fire right now, selling houses. Actually on the phone with the JVP down in West Palm Beach yesterday, on fire. That market's absolutely on fire right now. And there's a reason for that, because there is a contraction of supply. There's not a lot of supply. And so what they're doing is they have the ability to actually, number one, get multiple offers, and they get to actually sell above list price. So think about that for a second. When was the last time you can remember being able to sell for above list price and have multiple offers? Well, that's the lead up to 2008. Okay. It's really 2006, but the media says 2008, but nonetheless, you're watching it all over again. All right. And then you have all these people that are fleeing the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Rhode Island, et cetera, because of all the insanity that's going on up there and the fear of the COVID-19 pandemic stuff. And they're trying to get out of the Northeast. And then that's being compounded by the fact that you've got all these people in California that, due to the insanity that they are enacting out there with all of this ridiculous, again, unconstitutional regulations, people are trying to get out. Okay. And so what does that do? Well, again, we're talking about the pump. So let me show you a couple things here real quick. So we take a look at Washington, D.C. Okay. What does it say? In a cruel twist, expensive D.C. homes become especially expensive D.C. homes, with the median price point having surpassed $1 million for the first time. Okay. Why? People are going there obviously looking for jobs. Palm Beach County. We just talked about Palm Beach County. I got off the phone with the JVP yesterday. Market absolutely on fire. Why? Okay, double-digit sales spikes. They're talking about August here, but it hasn't stopped since then. Why are there double-digit sales spikes all of a sudden? It's because, again, all of these people in the Northeast are trying to get out of New York with the just, sheer madness that's going on up there. They're trying to get out of New Jersey and Rhode Island and Pennsylvania. And where are they going? They're going basically to 3 hotspots. Okay, those 3 hotspots right now. And it's the same with the people out of California. But the 3 hotspots right now are Florida, Texas, and Arizona. Okay, obviously better weather than all of these other states. Possibly, areas of California may have better weather than Florida, Texas, and Arizona. But largely, Florida, Texas, and Arizona are going to have much better weather all the way around than a lot of the northeastern states where you are dealing with 6, 8, 10, 12 feet of snow and all that stuff that you have to deal with. Okay. Now we talk about, California. Here, let me go back. Home flipping. Okay. This is on CNBC. Home flipping profits are the highest in 20 years. Okay. But fewer people are doing it, which I guess is good for us. But on both realms, number one, higher profits and less competition. But guess what? Why is this happening? Okay. The reason, again, this is happening is because of all of the contraction of supply in the marketplace. And what they define a home flip is basically a home that sells in less than 12 months from its acquisition date. Okay. And so, again, housing appears to be on a solid foundation, right? It appears to be like things are doing well, right? Okay. Now, as we go over here, let's go down. So we got all this stuff right here for the pump. Top 3 pump states, like I said, Florida, Texas, and Arizona, right? A lot of people are coming to Florida. Matter of fact, if you guys pay attention to the news, 2 major corporations just left California for good. That's Oracle, the software company, and then Tesla. Obviously, you guys know who Tesla is. Took off and told California to go pound sand, and now they're both based out of Austin. All right. For those of you guys who listen to or know what the Joe Rogan podcast is, he just did that $100 million deal with Spotify a couple months ago, and he got some very intelligent advice, and that was change your residence from California before you sign on the dotted line, because he was going to pay $14 million off the top of the $100 million to the state of California just in income tax, state income tax. Okay. Now we're not even talking about federal, we're talking about state income tax. So absolutely insane. So what did he do? He relocated to Austin as well. Why? Taxation. So you got Joe Rogan taken off out of California. You got Tesla taken off. You got Oracle taken off, and those guys are going to Texas. Okay. Here in Florida, we are being inundated. And I mean, inundated by people from the Northeast. I mean, I live in a vacation rental neighborhood, and the place is just overloaded with people from New York right now. I mean, just overloaded with people from New York. So they're trying to get out of there. They're coming down here. They're buying houses. They're buying a lot of these vacation rental properties that have been for sale. They can leave all their stuff in New York and come down and buy a fully furnished house that's got everything all set up and not have to deal with all the nonsense up in New York up until the point in time that they can sell their property up there, or if they even have properties, I don't know. But nonetheless, these are the top 3 pump states that I personally identified since this thing has been going on. Now, let's talk about the dump, okay? Because on a pump and dump, okay, the pump is where the prices get pumped up, and you finally hit a point, and then it's dump time, okay? And what that means is you sell at the peak of the market, right? You want to sell high, the whole thing. Buy low, sell high. Well, you want to buy low, and then now that you pumped it up, now it's time to dump it at the peak of the market, okay? So how do we do that? How do we dump? How do we get out? So we sell and we get out now, but what's going to cause the dump? Well, here you go. Nearly half the U.S. population, this is back from June of this year, a little earlier this year, and you got to be real careful because you can't believe the government statistics from labor and unemployment on how many people have jobs, because they're not really calculating. I mean, I don't know about you guys where you live, but by all means, certainly let me know. I know Disney here in Orlando has laid off something like 28,000 people. Okay. So there has not been some big impetus or catalyst for employment growth in the state of Florida, being a tourist state by and large. And then with all the crazy nonsense going on with all the restaurants and everything else, it's not as bad here, thankfully, as it is in, I guess, sort of like New York. They just shut off indoor dining again, which is like less than 0 cents. But, they're trying to put all those people out of business, and all those people now, all those people are unemployed, and it's only going to be more and more and more. Okay, if half the U.S. population is without a job, right? Even if you had, let's say we cut that number in half, let's say it's 25% is without a job during the dump, that's still, what is that? 75 million people? Roughly 80 million people, somewhere in there, without a job. Okay, but it gets even worse. Okay, COVID-19 eviction crisis. An estimated 30 to 40 million people in America are at risk. Now, what are they talking about? They're not talking about from getting the stupid virus. They're talking about from being evicted. Okay, 30 to 40 million people. This is the dump. Okay, so they're pushing the value of properties up artificially right now because of these eviction moratoriums that are in place and the foreclosure moratoriums that are in place. Once those are lifted, that's when the dump begins, because now all of a sudden, guess what happens? All of those evictions and foreclosures, they start making their way through the courthouses, and then guess what? The market is flooded, absolutely flooded with available inventory. Now, we go back to supply and demand. Guess what? Now we have oversupply and lack of demand because of all of the people who can no longer afford to buy or rent a property. Okay, so it goes back to the wasteland of 2008, 2009 all over again, only this time it's going to be even worse, sadly, okay, because now you're combining all that with all of these people that are also out of work. So here, this is from Sacramento Bee. California, no longer a boom state. New data shows residents fleeing California in near record numbers. This is the dump, okay? Now, so the question that you need to ask yourself is this. What happens to all those houses? Okay, all those people fleeing California, what happens to all those houses? Again, law of supply and demand. Now you have oversupply. So what does that do to pricing? It's going to drive pricing back down. That's the dump. Okay, prices go down, but they sell out at the peak. That's what you ideally want to do. Now, who knows what this building is? Can anybody tell me what this building is without Googling it? This building right here, and the people that are inside it control your life. So you ought to know who it is. Most people think that the puppet actors in Washington at the Capitol or at the White House are the ones that control your lives. But it's the people in this building right here. Anybody know what this is? Somebody, God, please leave me a comment. Let me know somebody knows what this building is. Anybody? Nobody? Really? Anybody have a clue? No, don't do a Google image search. Tell me if you know or not. All right. Well, for those of you who don't know, this is the Federal Reserve. You can actually see it carved in granite right there at the very top underneath that eagle or phoenix or whatever it's supposed to be. So what you need to understand is the way the dump works is once all of those, because one of two things is going to happen. All of the standard guys like us, landlords, most of them, if they continue these moratoriums into the first quarter and or second quarter of 2021, those houses are going to end up in foreclosure because guess what? The guys like us would not have had the ability to continue making the payments for over a year on a property that they weren't generating income from, still had to pay property taxes on, they still had to do maintenance repairs on. And all of these big banks that you see, they're all members of the Federal Reserve System. Okay, so they may be named Wells Fargo, but you might as well call it the Federal Reserve. maybe Bank of America, but you might as well call it the Federal Reserve. They're all the same. It's all the same thing. Okay, it's all different tentacles of the same octopus. Okay, so what they end up doing then is they end up foreclosing, and now what you've got is thanks to this recent whatever they end up calling it, merger of the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury to try to finally proclaim that the Fed is actually part of the government, which it's not. It's an independently owned corporation. But now they just came out. Matter of fact, earlier this morning, I posted that they said that they're going to, Jerome Powell, the head of the Fed at present, the Federal Reserve chairman, indicated that they're going to keep buying bonds. Okay, and what that means is they're going to keep printing the funny money, called helicopter cash, up until the point in time that there is no, or let me rephrase that. I believe they use the term total employment, but there's always going to be unemployment at a certain level, as well as keeping inflation at no greater than 2%. Well, I have news for you. That all sounds wonderful. It's great hyperbole, but you cannot print cash and solve the unemployment problem. You cannot print cash and solve or maintain inflation at 2%. Okay, they're both contradictory to what's actually happening, because every time a new debt-based fiat currency US dollar is printed, it erodes away at the purchasing power of every dollar that you have. And what that means in English is that, okay, so I don't know what you guys pay for milk where you're at, but we're paying, I think, what is it? Probably, I don't know, $4 or $5 a half gallon for organic milk here in Orlando. And so every time they print more money, well, then, my $5 doesn't buy as much milk anymore because the pricing has to adjust automatically. And that's what happens. Okay. They continue to devalue the dollar to the point that you're going to experience hyperinflation, just like they did in Venezuela, a year and a half ago. So you need to understand all this stuff for what it is. And that's how they end up doing this. And then they're counting on all of this money coming in from the slaves, who they're then going to then try to destroy. And by slaves, I'm talking about anybody that is a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen that pays income tax. Because just in case you guys don't know, your income tax that you pay has nothing to do with the federal government, okay? It has nothing to do with paying for the military, it has nothing to do with paying for roads, it has nothing to do with paying for any of that stuff, okay? It's 100% interest that's paid to the people that are in this building right here, okay? For those of you who don't understand that, okay? So your income tax that they steal from you isn't serving your country. It goes right to the owners of the Federal Reserve. Okay, it's interest on the fake debt that's created out of nowhere. So understand that for what it is. Now, the future where they're trying to get to, and this is all in, again, Agenda 21 and Agenda 30, this is Hong Kong. And this is what their standard of living is. This is how they crammed all those people in there. And they have these, there's tons of these things there, 80, 100-story high-rises like this, and where they just jam all these people into these horrific living conditions. And this is what it looks like on the inside. Okay, this is no joke. I mean, you guys can get on the internet and you can check this stuff out for yourself, but this is the direction that they're trying to take the United States in, okay, right now. They've already done it over in Asia. So, I mean, how hard is it to do here? Well, when they collapse everything, it's not going to be that hard at all. So what do you do? Right? Pop quiz, hot shot. What do you do? What do you do? This is where it's going. Okay, it's not a secret. They've put it out there in black and white. This is what they're trying to do to you. So what do you do? Well, right now, most important thing that you can do is get skills to pay the bills. All right. And get yourself in a position where you, like I am, where you've got multiple streams of internet income. Okay. And from multiple industries. Okay? So that way, when the real estate market tanks, which it's about to do, and, mark my words, I can't give you an exact date and time. It's, I don't control their time schedule. It all really depends on when they, you got a double-edged sword right now. And that double-edged sword is not knowing when they're going to get rid of the eviction and foreclosure moratoriums and when they're going to push investors to the point that they can't recover regardless. In other words, they're so far behind on the mortgage that they couldn't recover no matter what. Okay. So the most important thing that you can do for yourself, your family, and everything right now is make sure that you have got multiple streams of internet income. You don't want a job anywhere. You don't want anything that is location based. You want to be able to be mobile and have freedom of time, location, and schedule. That's what I teach personally. That's what I do. That's what I've been doing for more, well over a decade now. And you guys need to be doing the same thing. Okay. I'm just telling you, you got to get your house in order and put yourself in a position so that you have the skills necessary to make money from anywhere and understand what's actually happening, understand the signs so you don't get caught up in this whole thing. Because when they pull the rug out on real estate, like they did back in 2008, it was actually, like I said, the end of 2006, but the media always says 2008. It's going to be a bloodbath, okay? And you got to be prepared. You need to understand what you can do to make money during that period of time because, when they kneecap all these people with no employment, your ability to sell a house is going to be highly impaired. How are you going to sell a house to somebody if they can't afford it? Right? So understand it for what it's worth, guys. Right? So for those of you who need help, let me know. You can PM me, DM me, whatever it is. I've got numerous things that I do. I personally do businesses I work so that we can avoid all this stuff. If, real estate goes away tomorrow, it doesn't make a difference one way or the other because of diversified into multiple industries that are unimpacted by real estate. Matter of fact, the worse real estate gets, the better one of the other industries actually gets and the more cash we make. So it's set up that way on purpose, and that's the way that you want to be. If you are right now, if you're a W-2 employee, I hate it for you, but your top priority is becoming not a W-2 employee, becoming 100% self-employed. Like I said, get your first stream of income going, then get your second stream of income going, then get your third stream of income going, and keep things pushing forward as you're, preparing for what these clowns are doing. Okay. Because they, I don't care. We can get all political if you want to. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian. Doesn't make a difference one way or the other. They do not care about you. Okay. And all this nonsense that you see on, mainstream media with whatever's going on in Washington, it's all political theater. Okay. All it is reality TV for people. That's their flavor of entertainment. Okay. So they're not, what, a $1,200 stimulus check. I mean, seriously. Well, I think they're talking about now offering a $1,500 stimulus check if you get the vaccine. Yeah, you guys go ahead and knock yourself out with that, okay? I'm just telling you, you want to put yourself in a position so that these speed bumps, these road bumps, these potholes that are undoubtedly coming are things that you're prepared for, okay? And you keep just trucking on because if you don't, you're going to regret it, okay? And I told everybody this back in March, or it was either March or April when I did that webinar. I said, look, they're going to get everybody comfortable. They're going to hit these people with these stimulus checks, and then they're going to get their tax refunds, and then have unemployment, and then that'll eventually run out. And then sometime, right around my estimate at that point was the last quarter of this year, they're going to pull the rug out. Okay. And guess what? Have they come back out with another stimulus thing? Nope. More people unemployed than ever. Right. But here, look at this nonsense. You guys explain this to me right here. Somebody smarter than me explain this to me. So we got the Dow, what, all-time highs? Right? How? How is that possible? You got 40 or 50 million people out of work. Okay? Business is going under every single day. How is that possible? How is the value of these companies going up as America is going under? It's not possible, guys. And it's all from artificial stimulation from what they call quantitative easing from the Federal Reserve. It's all funny money. They're pumping money into the system, and it's propping all this stuff up. This whole thing is a house of cards that's going to collapse too. So don't think that it's not. It doesn't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter if it's Trump or Biden or somebody else. Okay, this whole thing. I mean, this is legalized gambling. You might as well just go to Vegas and put it all on red. Throw the dice and I don't know craps, but throw the dice and get number 7 or whatever you're supposed to get to win in craps. Okay, because that's what you're doing here. Okay, the whole thing is it's an unbelievable joke to witness on a daily basis how America could be in the crisis that it's in, yet somehow the value of U.S. companies is going up. Makes absolutely less than 0 sense to anybody with half a brain whatsoever. Okay. All right. So Lee says, what are your thoughts about what will happen to the people who are paying cash for houses in Texas, Arizona, Florida, Utah, ski resorts, areas, etc.? Well, I am, again, not a proponent of ever having equity in a property. When you talk about, I've done a podcast and webinar on this. There's three types of title. Okay. You've got, legal title, which means you have the deed, unless you've got a life estate. You have equitable title, which means you have equitable interest in the property, which is some type of bundle of rights. And then you have what's called a allodial title. Okay, the only one of those that you really want is a allodial title. Under legal title and or equitable title, you are taking title to the property as a tenant, which means you do not own it. Okay, and the reason why is because they do not allow slaves to own property. So even if you pay cash, which I do not advise because equity is the enemy of investors. Right? You guys don't understand that. You don't understand the tax benefits that you're giving up. The fact that all you're doing is putting all that money 110% at risk of loss. It's you want to be liquid. Okay. The illusion of home ownership in the U.S. is beyond belief. And people never stop to think, why am I taking title to the property as a tenant? Well, you're taking title of the property as a tenant because slaves aren't allowed to own property. Okay. That's why you're taking title to real estate. Okay. Not ownership of land. There's a big difference. So I do not advise personally taking hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash and dumping them into real estate. Okay. For those reasons, because it can be taken away from you. And if you don't think so, don't pay a tax bill. Don't pay a property tax bill. Have the whole thing 100% paid off and don't pay one property tax bill. Watch what happens. They come and they foreclose on you for, hell, we did this a couple of years ago. There was a horror story of, some old lady, grandma, whatever, had paid her house off over 30 years. And for some fee or whatever it is, some $6.83 tax payment that didn't get made, they foreclosed on her. Okay. She lost her house over like $6.83. And those numbers aren't 100% accurate. So I'm just trying to base that off memory, but it was ridiculous. Okay. It was like less than $10. And the county foreclosed on her. Okay. Well, they got a hell of a deal, didn't they? Okay. Think about that, because that's the kind of stuff they ended up doing. So I don't advise cash in properties ever. I have never put money down on any deal I've ever done in 30 years. I don't advise that you guys do it. If you're going to do it because the type of deal that it is requires cash down, my advice is always to use either private money, hard money, whatever it is. Pay the points. Let the guy make his money. It's the whole pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered thing. But don't you go on the hook and eliminate your liquidity because you cannot eat equity. You cannot pay bills with equity. And the answer to your question is what's going to happen nationwide. It doesn't matter really what state it is you're going to see pricing tank everywhere. Okay. Now I will throw one caveat out there to that. If they accelerate this thing with getting everybody to move to east of the Mississippi, like they have proposed in Agenda 21 and Agenda 30, then you may see there may be a rise in pricing as there's, much more contraction in the marketplace for a period of time. But eventually, like I said, they're going to, this thing, real estate's been in a bubble for a long time. Okay. It's only being propped up right now because of this nonsense that we're looking at here. Okay, the Dow Jones Industrial Average right now, 30,285. It's insane, people. Okay, I mean it's absolutely maniacally insane. You cannot tell me any legitimate reason whatsoever that the value, which is what a stock is. Okay, stock is nothing other than a stock. Let me rephrase that. A stock price is based off of the value of the company, right? So when you're buying Apple stock or you're buying Google stock or whatever it is, it's based off of a multiple of the value of the company. Now, certainly there are some companies that have gone up ridiculously well in the face of the pandemic, the fake pandemic, because it's not real. You can't have a pandemic with a 99.7% survival rate. Doesn't exist, but nonetheless, companies like Zoom, the webinar thing or whatever it is, screencasting, Zoom. You guys know what Zoom is. They're kind of like GoToWebinar or whatever. Obviously, their shares have soared because they've had a massive influx of new subscribers because people are working from home. So there are some legitimate reasons that are out there that companies would have increased in value. Okay. But across the board, for the Dow to be doing what it's doing right now, for the S&P to be doing what it's doing right now, in the face of 40 to 50 million people unemployed, in the face of all of these small businesses going out of business, okay, where are those people going to go? In the face of 30 to 40 million people looking at being evicted, in the face of, how God only knows how many foreclosures that are going to hit balance sheets of these banks. Okay. And that's a whole nother conversation we can talk about. For those of you who understand, up until whatever it was, 4 or 5 months ago, under what's called fractional reserve lending, the banks were required to maintain a reserve. Okay. Which means that because they create, the money's all fake anyway. It's all monopoly money. It's not even money. It's currency. Okay. So you can't even call it money, but nonetheless, so if you deposited $1 million, okay, that instantly gave them the ability to lend out $9 million more. They created it like on a keyboard. So you hear me, on a keyboard, $9 million in new loans at interest. Of course, you don't get any money for that, but they had to maintain that $1 million in a liquid reserve. Well, when the Fed did whatever this bogus merger thing was with U.S. Treasury, they took and eliminated the fractional reserve requirement. So the big question now is, if there's no fractional reserve requirement, then you don't know when a bank, because in a normal market environment, the FDIC would be monitoring the reserves of each of the member banks to ensure their solvency. Okay. And if they were insolvent, because this happened to, I'll give you a perfect real life example. Back in 2000 and it was either late 2008 or early 2009, I did a deal with a bank called Park Avenue Bank. They were a regional bank based out of Florida and Georgia, and they had branches in both states. Whatever, it was a smaller bank. I can't remember. I think they had 8 or 10 or 12 banks, or 8 or 10 or 12 locations or whatever. And when they made the mistake of foreclosing on all of the builders in new construction that they were they had been working with, and they thought that they were going to be able to sell the properties. They couldn't sell the properties either, so we had entered into an agreement with them to sell them on variants of owner finance deals. Okay. Now, what ended up happening was they ended up foreclosing on so many properties that their reserve requirement got out of balance. And when that reserve requirement got out of balance, here comes the FDIC. And the FDIC comes in, and for those of you who don't know, FDIC stands for the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which isn't really, this goes back, most of you guys are too young to know what I'm talking about here, but FDIC went belly up about 30 years ago, and they were replaced by what's called the SAIF. But then to ensure consumer confidence, they renamed it back to the FDIC, even though the FDIC didn't exist anymore. But it's called the FDIC right now. And this is where they tell you, oh, you have $100,000 in insurance per deposit account. Okay, so trying to give consumer confidence that in the event that the bank goes under, you're guaranteed, you're at least $100,000 per account, which is not true, by the way. But anyway, that's what they sell you on. And so, long story short, the reserve requirement, they went upside down, and the FDIC jumped in and they liquidated the assets, and they sold them off to Bank of the Ozarks. They came in and they bought up all of the dead assets, the REO inventory. REO stands for real estate owned, all the foreclosure property at pennies on the dollar. Okay. They bought up they took over all of the accounts, the deposit accounts, all of that. And that's the way it worked then. God only knows how it's going to work now, because there is no more, there is no reserve requirement. So, how many, I don't know. I mean, how many foreclosures can they have? I mean, this is how they take over private property ownership. If there's no reserve requirement and the FDIC can't take them over, then they can have, thousands of REOs. Okay. They can have thousands of foreclosures in their portfolio. And that's how they can take over and control private property and end private property ownership in the United States, just like that, one fell swoop, because there's no longer a reserve requirement. But nobody's talking about this stuff, okay? Nobody talks about this stuff. But anyway, there you go. Anyway, hope that helps. Let me know if I can help you. If you guys need to make more money, you want to move to multiple streams of income, multiple streams of internet income, hit me up. I've got numerous programs that can help get you going immediately and have you start making cash today, and hopefully help you weather the storm that is coming. So you guys have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Virtual Real Estate Investor Podcast with Vincent Polisi. If you found any value in this podcast, please use our Give to Get method and take a moment to give us a 5-star rating in iTunes and your favorite podcast service, so we can keep giving you excellent episodes of real content you can use to profit today.